He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
Amari Johnson, the rookie out of South Dakota State, will get the fake. Clifford, and for the lead, got it! Sean Clifford in his only appearance in his only drive of the afternoon, leading him 68 yards and caps it off with an 11-yard touchdown run to give Green Bay their first lead today.
Good morning, Packers Nation. Happy Monday. We will all remember where we were for that epic Sean Clifford comeback moment against the Indianapolis Colts in Week 2 of preseason 2025. Welcome into the Pack a Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That was courtesy of TMJ4. We've got a great show for you today. Marcus Eversoll, 107.5 The Fan in Green Bay. He'll be joining us, I should say, at 8:20 today. I would also love for you to join the show. You can join us on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. My name is Andy Herman. Thank you so much for being here. Always appreciate it. If you want to also get in your chats, questions, you can send us on YouTube as well. We are live on YouTube, and you can ask us your questions there, and we can get through them throughout the course of today's show. We did have a big Packers preseason victory over the Indianapolis Colts, led by that Sean Clifford comeback. A little bit of Taylor Elgersma magic mixed in there as well. But before we get there, Tommy, welcome in today. How are you doing, my friend? How was your weekend?
Good. I'm very good, Andy. My weekend was pretty solid. Watched a lot of sports. We had Packer preseason week 2. We had Brewers streak ending. It was a good weekend overall, though. How about you?
Yeah, likewise. I was up in your neck of woods for LCD Sound System on Friday, so that was great. And then preseason game, had some soccer with the boys, and then, a lot of baseball as well, which was very, very fun. And Open of Premier League. It was nice to have those. I know you were all over that, but it was nice to have soccer on in the mornings again as well. So, all good things all around for sure. But I will say this. I know it was a disappointing end to the streak yesterday for Milwaukee, but I'll still take series win 2 out of 3 against a really solid Cincinnati team as well, which, they tried their best, obviously, to take all 3 of those, and Milwaukee still found a way to get 2 of the 3. So I'll definitely take that.
Yeah, they pretty much had no business winning the first 2 games, honestly, 2 of
Sure.
the series. So they almost had no business winning yesterday again, but luck ran out. Clock struck midnight.
Yeah, no luck to do with it, Tommy Orr. It's all skill, and you know what? You play every single out, and good things are going to happen, and more often they do. But yesterday, the Reds kind of pulled the Brewers on the Brewers, and again, that's going to happen from time to time, and it's more than okay. But we've got a lot to get into today when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, what happened in that preseason game, and more specifically, some of the injury updates surrounding the team. It was a rough week when it came to injury updates. Of course, Jordan Love was hurt, thankfully, from his surgery standpoint, and a torn ligament. It was his left thumb. It does sound like he's going to participate this week. It sounds like they're already sort of making over practices a little bit to be more accommodating for Jordan, and that the expectation is that he's going to be out there. They're going to be doing some 7-on-7 drills to accommodate that a little bit more, not put anything in harm's way when it comes to that thumb, which makes a ton of sense. So, it does sound like he's going to be out there this week, but there were 3 injuries in that game in particular against Indianapolis, and we didn't get great news on any of the 3. From a more concerning standpoint, Omar Brown was still in the hospital as of yesterday. Matt LaFleur mentioned that the hope was that he would be able to get out of the hospital today. I was hoping more that would be like a one-night precautionary thing, just keep him to double check, and then he'd be let go the next morning. But apparently that was not the case. And again, he was still in the hospital as of yesterday. And again, the expectation is that he'll be released today. But so hopefully he's okay. And certainly thinking of him, as that's, I'm sure, a very scary situation. We'll see what the timeline is for his return once he gets back to Green Bay and everything like that. But of course, more important things right now for him than just what happens on the football field. And then as far as the other 2 injuries, Barron Sorrell went out with a knee injury, playing special teams on a punt coverage early in the game. And that sounds like it's going to be a while for Barron Sorrell. He's going to miss some time per Matt LaFleur. And then the most unfortunate injury luck in the world continues for Marshawn Lloyd. He looks good in his preseason debut, gets a beautiful wheel route along the sidelines, and hurts his hamstring on the play. And Matt LaFleur said that he is going to miss some time as well. There was some good news. Jordan Love, as mentioned, sounds like he's going to do some practicing this week. When asked if Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed are going to be ready for week 1, Matt LaFleur gave a kind of jovial, like, I hope so. But hopefully that usually means good things for those two, that they would be returning, just kind of based on your Matt LaFleur-isms and how he kind of responds to injuries. And then Savion Williams, though, unfortunately, he also missed the game with that hamstring injury. We talked about that last week, of how he had the massage gun on his leg and didn't return to practice. That is also confirmed as a hamstring injury. So a lot of ups and downs when it comes to this injury list for Green Bay, but definitely disappointing that Marshawn Lloyd and Barron Sorrell going to miss some time. Tommy, these injuries starting to pile up a little bit.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating when you hear something like that with Marshawn Lloyd again, who was a guy who everyone was excited to see and go up against last year, and then obviously had the terrible injury luck starting all the way back to last season. And I also, Barron Sorrell, I guess I didn't realize how athletic he is to be able to go out on special teams in the way that he is. But another name where I just don't know if they have that expendability on the defensive line to be even having the most athletic defensive lineman go out and risk injury on those plays too. So that was where I was at with the injury situation. Obviously, you hope the best for Omar Brown, but I don't know how much he was going to play into the game plan at the safety position if everyone was healthy for Green Bay. But the other two, for sure, you thought they were going to have some sort of role, and now week 1 in jeopardy for both of them.
Yeah, you would certainly think so. And of course, again, at some point, some players are going to have to need to play in the game. They sat 29, which is really like 31 players, because Matthew Golden and Brandon McManus did not play either, despite not being official scratches for the game. So they literally rested 31 players in that game. And at some point, somebody's got to go out there and do stuff, and you're just going to still be at risk of injury. But just unfortunate that with Marshawn Lloyd, Barron Sorrell, two players that we're going to factor into game plans, could be, again, out potentially for week 1, maybe even a little bit beyond. Hopefully they're both back sooner than that. But based off of Matt LaFleur's initial responses yesterday, definitely sound like they're at risk of potentially missing some time going into the regular season. And that was the one thing that I had kind of going so far as we talked about the different injuries, is we had not had anything kind of confirmed of any players that were of any real substance. I don't want to say substance, but like of any real concern. Missing week 1. Travis Glover's on IR for the year. John Williams, the 7th round rookie, sounds like he's going to be missing a pretty significant chunk of time. And then, of course, you have Christian Watson on PUP, which is definitely noteworthy. But everything else, we haven't had any confirmation, and still technically don't, that anyone's going to miss week 1. But again, the more you get these injuries closer and closer to the regular season, and with Marshawn Lloyd and Barron Sorrell, it certainly looks and feels like those two could be ones that reach into the season. And that's where you start to get a little bit more concerned. It's different if it's, you miss some preseason and training camp. If all of a sudden you've got guys missing that Lions and maybe that Washington game right thereafter, that definitely changes the calculus on how you look at all these injuries.
Yeah, and I also think the roster construction as well, too, right? Because now you've had this unlucky start to Marshawn Lloyd's NFL career. Maybe it provides some sort of trust issue as well with him being healthy for an entire season. And running back right now, that's been a position that we've talked about, where how many guys is Green Bay going to keep on the roster? Marshawn Lloyd, it felt like, had a locked up spot. I still think does have a locked up spot, but obviously rocking with 2 running backs versus 3 is a big difference in game plan as well for Green Bay.
Yeah, so I think it does absolutely affect the running back position. I think it will affect potentially defensive end as well. If you look at running back, we've been talking about Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, Josh Jacobs. Do they keep 3? Do they keep 4? How does that work? There's a chance now that Marshawn Lloyd ends up in that IR designated to return at cutdown time if he's going to miss a first portion of the season, which would pretty much lock in Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson, and Josh Jacobs. Well, we know Jacobs is making, obviously, but lock in Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson on that roster as the other 2 running backs. That definitely could play into some of the decision making there. Could also help just somebody else on the team if they were going to keep 4 running backs on the active roster previously, and now Lloyd starts on IR designated to return, assuming that an Israel Abanikanda or an Amar Johnson don't make the team now as that 4th running back, which I don't think that they would. Not impossible, but I would lean probably somewhere else at the moment. Could open up a sixth corner, a sixth defensive tackle, a sixth defensive end, some different positions where, maybe they weren't going to keep an extra player that now they might have the ability to do so because they're keeping one less at running back. And at defensive end, you've got Rashawn Gary, LVN, Kingsley Enagbare, Brenton Cox, who right now are pretty much sitting pretty as your top 4 defensive ends. Colin Oliver, is he going to get back off of the PUP list before the start of the season? Or are they just going to keep him on PUP so that they can, rest him those 4 weeks and then give him that 3-week ramp up period and see where he's at that time? Or does he start practicing? Barron Sorrell is now going to miss some time. Does he end up on IR designated to return? The player that really could benefit here potentially is Aaron Mosby, who had a pretty solid game this last week. But the big thing I think a lot of people don't recognize with Mosby is he is a core special teamer, plays a ton of special team snaps, was on the 53 as the 6th defensive end this past year. He now has a potential runway to be the 5th defensive end if Sorrell and Colin Oliver are not ready to play to start the season. Even if one of them is, even if like Colin Oliver is, Mosby could just be ahead of him based on experience at this point. We don't know what to expect from Colin Oliver. So the player that I think this really benefits is probably Aaron Mosby the most. And then on the offensive side, potentially just locking in Emmanuel Wilson at this point. If in fact Marshawn Lloyd's out, even if, like you said, Marshawn Lloyd is not out, even if he's back, do you trust him to be just one of 3 running backs? Or do you really feel like you have to have 4 because of all the injury issues that have come up with him? This is probably the first time I had a big thing, Tommy, of like, injury prone, is it a thing? Like, how do you define it? Can you predict it off of it? Like, I think you can look back and say a player has been injury prone thus far. I don't think it's always predictable moving forward, meaning, if they have been hurt, it doesn't necessarily always mean that they're going to be hurt moving forward. It's not usually a great sign. I will readily admit that. But I do wonder, if they have to kind of change the calculus. This has been the first time that I think I've had a player where like every single time he like carries the ball or touches the ball, like I am now worried. Like even in this preseason game, when he carried the ball or when he like caught a pass, I'm like, all right, be okay, be okay, be okay. And it looked like he was up until he wasn't, and then immediately got hurt again. So yeah, It is what it is. Definitely disappointing, but hopefully Marshawn Lloyd can come back and be a very impactful player, and this can be the final of this literally insane injury saga for him so far.
Yeah, Andy, can we get to good news now? Because I have a player that I really want to make this team that I don't think's going to make this team.
Okay,
but I seriously want them to make this team.
Okay, offense or defense?
It's on offense. You
seriously want to make the team. You don't think they're going to make the team. All right, it's not an offensive lineman. I don't think it's a running back. I don't think it's a quarterback. I don't think it's it's got to be a wide receiver. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be something like a Cornelius Johnson or a Isaiah Nair. I'm gonna say it's somebody like that. No,
it's
okay.
Julian Hicks. I
was
Julian.
So close. Right position.
You're right on you're right around it. But that guy is. I'm telling you, I think Julian Hicks should make the NFL roster. I think he should. I am. If Green Bay's taking in 6 wide receivers, I think he can be the number 6 wide receiver. And I
don't. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I just think that he's going to be a very good NFL player based on 3 catches I've seen of the guy in preseason at this point.
All right, so first of all, big Julian Hicks guy, have been since he was an undrafted free agent last year. Really liked his tape coming out. Made a sweet catch last year from Michael Pratt on a back shoulder fade. And then this year, of course, has had a couple of those really nice receptions. Unfortunately, they didn't count, but it doesn't matter because it's preseason anyway. But he's just Mr. Consistency. Like, that is who he is at practice. I've talked about him and Desmond Alexander as 2 players that if you have on your practice squad and you can call up, like you have players that can come in and help you at a moment's notice. Here's the thing, and if you said that, like, hey, I want to keep Hicks instead of Malik Heath as the number 6, sure, be my guest. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I think personally Heath is probably a smidge up, a step up from Hicks, but I wouldn't hate it one way or the other if you decided to keep Hicks instead. What I will say is, when you're looking at wide receivers, there's in general one of 3 things that you have to have in order to be like, oh, we should hang on to this guy. We want to draft this guy. We want to keep this guy, etc. There's a lot of, again, this is going to always sound disrespectful. I don't mean it like that. Because again, I'm actually a big fan of Julian Hicks in general. There's a lot of Julian Hicks type receivers out there who can make some contested catches at the point of attack and, make the kind of catches that he can. But there's 3 things one of 3 things that you kind of have to have in order to make it in the NFL as a wide receiver. One is just really impressive run after the catch ability. So I can get you a wide receiver screen, a reverse and end around. I can scheme you on a little crosser, and just the ball is in your hands, and defenses are immediately scared of you because you have the ability to run after the catch and make a lot of yards after. I don't think Julian Hicks has that. You have to have either the next one would be like immaculate route running ability. Like, Devontae Adams is like the extreme version of this. Terry McLaurin, others, like if you've got that great route running where you're not the fastest guy in the world, you're not going to, make everyone miss after the catch or anything like that. But my goodness, you can absolutely get just flat out open and make things very easy for the quarterback. That would be number 2. So that's kind of your intermediate. You can get open anywhere on the field. And then the last one is that you've got that Christian Watson or MVS or, Tyreek Hill or et cetera, that deep ball ability where people are afraid of you at all points in time down the field, where you're just stretching the defense. They've got to keep a safety over the top. You kind of have to have one of those 3 things to make it successfully as a receiver in the NFL. I don't think Hicks technically checks any of those boxes, but I will say this: reliable, dependable, good route runner, catches everything near him. And we saw that this past week. And again, if you have him in an NFL game, I think you can more than get away with him as your number 4, 5, or 6 receiver. He has that type of ability. And we've seen players in a similar vein, not the exact same as Hicks, but in a similar type of vein as Jarrett Boykin, Geronimo Allison, Malik Heath, others who have been undrafted free agents who have gone on and had 3, 4, or like 3-year careers as like even almost like starting receiver at times, especially for Boykin and Allison. So I definitely think he has that ability, and he's a 53-man rosterable player somewhere in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I just see him being a guy who is one of those guys, like a Bo Melton game, right? Where it's just He has a touchdown and 80 yards 1 week for you in the season. And Bo Melton, another guy we can talk about, obviously, from the weekend too. But I just think that if you're talking about who should be the number 6 wide receiver on the team, Julian Hicks has my vote. I think he has something special. He's making contested catches as well. Even the one that did count was like the slant over the middle that he was draped all over, and he brought it in. I think he should be the guy they take a flyer on, at least for my liking, for Green Bay.
I'd be more than cool with it. Like I said, I've liked him from the day that they signed him as an undrafted free agent. I think there's something there. And if they want to take a chance, not even a chance, but they want to give him that number 6 spot instead of McCole Hardman and Malik Heath, you would not hear any umbrage from me with that decision whatsoever. You're listening to us on the Pack a Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Is there anyone else that stood out to you in that game, Tommy? Anyone else that got you a little bit excited?
Well, I can't say necessarily that I was very attentive during it, but also it means that it wasn't a lot of bad news going around during this stretch. Jordan Morgan is having a hell of a preseason right now, Andy.
He really, really is. And this is by far and away the biggest preseason takeaway so far. This is a first-round pick that is out there looking like a first-round pick, looking like a legitimate starting offensive lineman, and there has to be some real excitement about that. He's very much in that competition for left tackle. I think this is going to end up in a platoon still. This is where I always kind of saw it going. I think it's going to be Banks at left guard, Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, Zach Tom at right tackle. And I think you're going to see Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan both kind of get snaps at left tackle, kind of rotate in and out. They've done this before with Rasheed Walker and Yosh Nijman. They've done it with Sean Ryan and John Runyon Jr. And now I think that the latest one is going to be Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan. And listen, if Morgan just goes out and outplays them, they could get to that point. I think you have to be a little careful with Rasheed, because if you don't play, if I'm Rasheed's agent, or if I'm Rasheed and I'm not starting, it's just Jordan Morgan and the other 4 guys, I'm I'm requesting a trade. Like, I've got to get out, because the Dan Moores of the world just got $20 million on the open market being a starting left tackle. And if I don't get to start, I'm potentially losing out on like a 4-year, $80 million deal. I might lose 40, 50 million by not playing this upcoming year and not getting that opportunity. So if I'm not playing, I feel like I got to get the heck out of Green Bay somehow. And Green Bay also doesn't want that. They don't want any awkwardness. They can't afford. They have 6 offensive linemen, really. Anthony Belton's the 7th, and we saw that he's still got some growing pains to go through along the offensive line. So I think they sort of need to appease him a little bit. And at some point, we know this pretty clearly. Injuries are going to hit along the offensive line. You're going to have one of those guys get hurt, and you can just adjust it after that. But I think to begin with, you keep that as a platoon. But to your point, Tommy, no bigger takeaway through 2 weeks of preseason than how Jordan Morgan is playing. And they got themselves what seems like a very solid offensive lineman, if not better than that. And he looks like he's going to have a very long career as a starting offensive lineman somewhere along that line. And that's looking like a better and better pick every single day.
Yeah, I said earlier, you can put him in Sharpie, you just don't know where to write him. I do think he's going to win the left tackle spot at this point. I think that he's got a fast track to it. I think they want him to be there. I guess they didn't love Rasheed Walker as much as a lot of other people did in the previous season. I think he's going to be the starting left tackle week 1 for the Green Bay Packers.
Could easily be the case. And even if it is like a platoon, he could still technically be like the starter, and then Rasheed Walker gets some snaps here or there. But yeah, I do think either way, he's going to play, and sooner rather than later. Yeah, I thought overall, nice to get the preseason win. Some positive takeaways. Tyron Hopper, another one from that draft class, by the way, who's playing some really good football and getting his name in the conversation. On the flip side, Isaiah Simmons, brutal start to his preseason debut in Green Bay over the last 2 weeks. He's gotten himself, I think, much more on the hot seat. It looked like he was going to have a role in this defense. Now it might not even be where he's actually on the team whatsoever. So another player to kind of keep an eye on over this final preseason week, and as we get set for joint practices with Seattle this upcoming week. All right, football talk in the fan presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are at 71 and cloudy right now in Milwaukee. High of 75 today, low of 69. We're going to be back with Marcus Eversoll. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. Joining us right now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Marcus Eversoll. You can find him on social media at Marcus Eversoll, on Better Call Eversoll on 107.5 The Fan in Green Bay. Not only does he have one of the great names in all of radio with Better Call Eversoll for a show, but he also has the road dog Jesse James introing his show. Marcus, I got to ask you to start things off. First of all, welcome. But second of all, if you could only have one, the wonderful name of Better Call Eversoll as the tagline in the title of your show, or road dog bringing you into your show, which one would you rather have?
Well, it would be Road Dog, but it's like you can't have one without the other. Because why would I have Road Dog introduce me without the "you better call Eversoll"? You know what I mean? So you can't have one without the other.
That is true. So you have to have both. It's a package deal. The radio gods have smiled upon you amazingly with those two things. It's always a joy. Whenever I get to come on the show, and I'm actually on the one where the time frame where I get to hear the Better Call Eversoll from Road Dog, it makes me smile every time. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But Marcus, welcome in. I know we've got a lot of Packers stuff to talk about, so we'll start there. I just want to get your takeaways from Packers Colts and what stood out to you and what you really thought was maybe most important from that game.
I think the first takeaway is just the penalties. I mean, it was a pretty frustrating game. I know it's only preseason and there's not too much to take away from these games, but unfortunately, based on how ugly that opener was against the Jets, I think you just went into the second preseason game against the Colts the other day looking for a little cleanup on aisle Packers, like clean up on aisle penalties. Stop hurting yourselves with the mental errors and pre-snap penalties, alignment penalties. And that just didn't happen. I mean, 11 penalties in the first half. I don't know what the breakdown was as far as when they were, but I swear there were like 7 of the 11 penalties were in the last 5 minutes of the first half. It was just every other play there's a penalty. So that was annoying. Now, good news, they cleaned that up in the second half and only had 1 accepted penalty, I believe. So overall, I think that was the biggest takeaway, was just the borderline unwatchability and frustrating nature of the penalties. Like, you would think they'll get cleaned up during the season, but this was also kind of a pattern last year too, the mental mistakes and stuff like that. So that's disappointing. I think my most positive takeaway though is Jordan Morgan. Over the last couple weeks, I mean, Matt LaFleur just said yesterday that that's 100% a competition at left tackle between Jordan Morgan and Rasheed Walker. Up until the last couple weeks, I'd say, I kind of was of the belief that Jordan Morgan would be a guard until he proves that he's a tackle, even though I know he played tackle in college. Over the last 2 weeks, he has looked like not only a left tackle, he's looked like a good left tackle. He's played whatever it was, 60 snaps, 38 pass blocking snaps over the 2 preseason games, has not given up a pressure yet. I am cautiously optimistic. I think Jordan Morgan is looking really good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Just as a heads up, you're cutting out a little bit, Marcus, here and there, but I'm right there with you with Jordan Morgan. I think what his ability to now bring is like a true legitimate, I think, starting caliber player on the offensive line gives them so much more depth than I think even they had going in, or at least I'm more confident with the depth of at least the first 6 guys on the team. And as far as the penalties go, I'm willing to give a little bit more accident forgiveness in preseason, kind of like you mentioned, just because you've got guys out there trying to make a name for themselves. They don't want to put some really bad tape. There's probably some nerves that go into this, and it's not exactly a cohesive unit of guys that's going to be playing consistently in the regular season, but it definitely would have given me a little bit more like positive vibes if it was almost the opposite, where like the first half you got in there with the guys that are a little bit more established and didn't have a lot of penalties, and then it kind of creeped up a little bit with the 3rd and 4th string guys, but it was kind of the opposite. It did feel like there were a couple things that the NFL was maybe, trying to make a point on with some of the illegal procedure stuff and whatever, but yeah, I would like to see it cleaned up this week in that 3rd preseason game. I know the officials are going to be out there for Packers Seahawks joint practice, like the actual officials, so maybe that'll help, but definitely something when you get into Detroit, like little mistakes like that can be extremely costly, and you definitely want to get that cleaned up before that first week of the regular season.
100%, and it's going to be here in a hurry. I mean, we're only a couple weeks away from that season opener, and it feels like they have a lot to clean up, and it's not going to get any easier. I know it's not penalty related necessarily, but with where they're at, missing 5 of their top 6 receivers. I know Jordan Love's expected to practice this week, but clearly, he's not at 100%. The passing game hasn't shown much so far. They do have a lot to clean up before that opener for sure.
Very much so. We're being joined by Marcus Eversoll. You can find him on social media at Marcus Eversoll, and Better Call Eversoll on 107.5 The Fan in Green Bay. Let's talk about some of the injuries that also could affect Green Bay in week one. It's unfortunately getting to be quite the laundry list of injuries, Marcus, including Marshawn Lloyd, who just unfortunately has not been able to stay healthy at all for literally any period of time. And this just adds another injury to his resume. He now has some hamstring tightness. It sounds like per Matt LaFleur, he's going to miss some time. What kind of concerns you most about this injury list right now?
Well, I think Saturday was the most Marshawn Lloyd experience ever. And I'm not trying to make a joke out of it or anything, but he shows flashes every opportunity that he gets, and yet every opportunity that he gets, he winds up getting hurt. And it's so unfortunate for a guy who's worked so hard, showed up in great shape, did everything he had to do, went down to Madison to figure out the soft tissue stuff, and unfortunately, yet another injury. But in the midst of it all, that wheel route down the sideline was awesome. He had the Texas route earlier in the game, I think on the first possession, where Malik Willis just missed him. But that's the kind of stuff we see in practice all the time. And I think we were talking after one play last week where he's the kind of guy where, I think it was Brenton Cox on the left side of the offensive line, right side of the defense, blew up a play, got 3 yards penetration in the backfield. Marshawn Lloyd at the handoff to that side of the field off tackle. He bounces it to the other side for what looked like a chunk play, but you're kind of programmed to think, in a game, he's blown up behind the line of scrimmage because they're not tackling. You just kind of you stop there. With Marshawn Lloyd, he has the kind of skill set. I don't know that would have been stuffed in the backfield. That certainly wasn't because he bounced it to the other side. You see that change of direction and that change of pace in games, and every opportunity that he gets. That's why it's so enticing, the idea of Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd in the same backfield together. It's the stereotypical thunder and lightning dynamic. It sounds awesome. And then he gets hurt, and it just happens all the time. I hate the term injury prone because I think a lot of times people just use it the wrong way. It insinuates that someone's soft or they're not doing what they can or they're made of glass or whatever people want to say. Whatever it is, I don't know. Marshawn Lloyd has had really, really bad luck with injuries, and I got to believe if we're seeing it, Andy, every day in practice, every time that he's actually able to practice, the coaches have seen more of it, and I'm not saying they're spending too much time, adding pages to the playbook specifically for Marshawn Lloyd, but there's got to be some element to that because he just brings a different dynamic to that room. So it's unfortunate for him. I hope he's back, but he's the ultimate kind of guy where he makes you hold your breath every time he has the ball for multiple reasons. One, because he could take it the distance every time he touches the ball. And two, you just hold your breath because you hope he stays healthy by the end of the play.
Yeah, I was talking about that same thing earlier of this is maybe the player the most where every time he touches the ball, I'm like, oh my God, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. But also at the same time, it's the other side's oh my God, please don't take it the distance. Please don't take it the distance. He has that ability. And it's just so unfortunate because even last year when Green Bay was having some struggles with, kind of creating some of the dynamic plays down the field, Matt LaFleur was asked about it. And he actually, unprompted, brought up Marshawn Lloyd as a player that they were missing, that they were counting on to be an explosive playmaker for them. And they didn't have him out there, which was, they even at that time felt like was detrimental to the team. He anytime you can get explosive playmakers out on the field, it helps your team tremendously. He is one of those, and just not being able to even remotely use him so far has been disappointing, would be a vast understatement. Hopefully this is it, Marcus. This is the last one, and we can talk about a very fruitful career for Marshawn Lloyd from here on out. I'm with you, steadfastly when it comes to the injury-prone conversation, but it also has that lame and cliche, the best ability is availability. Doesn't matter if you've got a 4.1 40 or you have the greatest hands in the history of the world or the most explosive dynamic playmaking. If you're in the tub or you're on the bench, it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. And right now, Marshawn Lloyd's got to find a way to get out on the field to be able to be an impact player for this team, and it just has not gone that way for him so far. Going back to, I know you mentioned Jordan Morgan a little bit ago. I want to just go back to the offensive line for a moment. Anthony Belton is kind of now the latest in that conversation of like, all right, what is he going to be? Is he going to be a guard or is he going to be a tackle? What can he bring to the table? It's been really fun, Marcus, to watch him out there and make some of these big time pancake level blocks and just kind of move people into oblivion. But at the same time, 5 penalties in a quarter also stands out for not exactly the right reasons either. What's your take on Anthony Belton so far and what he can hopefully bring to this team, at least in the long term?
I just get the sense that this is going to be a blip on the radar, and that a few years from now we're going to be looking back at. Do you remember that rookie year, his second preseason game, when he had like 5 penalties in the first half? Ha ha, that was funny. Because like these are things that are correctable. It doesn't make it any easier to swallow if you're the head coach. Hence why you saw him red in the face, just reaming him out, headed into the locker room. Like you got to coach him up, but these things are correctable. You can't necessarily teach a 6'6", 330-pound dude to just bury people in the ground in the run game. He has that. So whether it's, LaFleur suggested that maybe it had to do with the guards, that they might need to move their guards up a little bit because the tackles line up accordingly to the guards. So maybe that's part of it. But either way, 4, if not all 5 of his penalties were avoidable, just mental lapses or lapses in judgment, whatever. I had to laugh because I had posted on Facebook on our station page about the penalties in the first half, and Anthony Belton had 5 of them, and a couple of them were like, well, at least now they can probably stash him on the practice squad or something like that. I'm like, no, okay, let's not. He's a second-round pick. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be one of their top 7 linemen, no doubt about it, at worst. He's, unfortunately, if usually injuries happen on the O-line, he'll probably be called upon to play. I'm not overly concerned about it. It was bad. You don't want the penalties. It was bad, but he does certain things that you can't teach, and I'm still high on Anthony Belton.
Very much so, and you could not have said it better. Some of the things that he's doing out there, I think, like you said, we're going to look back and be like, yeah, all the signs were there for him to be a potential dominant offensive lineman in this league. Just have to round out the edges and make sure that some of those things where, the demeanor is such a good thing when he's blocking players into the ground, but you also don't want it to happen after the whistle. I'd rather have him have that demeanor and kind of calm it down than the other way around where he just doesn't have that. And, some of the pre-snap stuff is pretty correctable, but just technique and making smart decisions, the football IQ stuff, you get that stuff down and he has every, unteachable trait that you could possibly want and just a different flavor of offensive lineman than they've had on that line. And I think that can be very advantageous as well. A couple other questions with Marcus before we get out of here. You can follow him on at Marcus Eversoll on social media, Better Call Eversoll on 107.5 The Fan in Green Bay. I got to ask you, I know the Trey Hendrickson trade, the news came out again that he is on the trade block. Have you spent the weekend putting together your fantasy Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons trades for Green Bay?
I have not. I'm intrigued. More intrigued by the rumor from the Twitter dog about Micah Parsons, because I feel like if that really happened, I put the probability at 1% that Parsons actually gets traded. It's so funny nowadays, by the way, whenever a star player requests a trade, everybody's reaction's like, oh, okay, that's cute. Well, talk to me when you're playing for your current team in week 1. Like, nobody expects it to happen. But, like, if there's anybody that might do something that crazy, maybe it's Jerry Jones. Again, I'd put the probability at very, very low, but if all of a sudden they shocked the NFL world and actually did move Micah Parsons, I think our reaction would be, well, only Jerry would do something like that for whatever reason. And if he really wants out, which he does, that's true. He formally requested a trade a while back. Still think he goes back to Dallas. But all 31 teams should at least have an offer in on Micah Parsons. He is one of the best players in the NFL, regardless of position. And same kind of thing for Trey Hendrickson. I know he's older, clearly not as versatile, maybe not as explosive as Micah Parsons, but Trey Hendrickson's an absolute stud. I think the Bengals made a huge mistake by paying – like T. Higgins is a great player. Obviously, Jamar Chase is a great player. But within the last year, they paid Joe Burrow his extension. They extend Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and now they're kind of like, well, we don't know if we can afford Trey Hendrickson. Wait a second. Your biggest problem has been defense. You got one of the best defensive players in the NFL on your team. Pay that guy, and maybe don't pay the luxury of having a number 2 receiver in T. Higgins, number 1 wide receiver money. It doesn't make sense to me, but again, that's what dumb organizations do, and the Bengals are not exactly a well-oiled machine. Look, if you said, would I like to see Micah Parsons or Trey Hendrickson on the Packers? Yes, 100%. I'd love to see both of them on the team. I feel like the probability is very low based on the timing here. Maybe if it happened at the start of the offseason and you plan accordingly. I guess if you're really looking at a trade package for either one of them, it would probably include sending a pass rusher the other way, maybe a Rashawn Gary to, I don't know, take some of the burden off or replace some of what the trading team loses. So don't think it's going to happen, but if it's a question as simple as, do you want to see Micah Parsons or Trey Hendrickson on the Green Bay Packers? Yeah, sign me up. I want both of them.
Just go out and trade for both. I think that's probably the right answer to this equation for sure. You said 1% chance that Micah Parsons gets traded. If I told you he did get traded, what percent chance do you think that would be to the Green Bay Packers?
I would say I'm going to go as high as 20%. Look, I don't think there's that many. I feel like it would have to be a team that could justify taking a big swing. And look, I can't help but think, what would this have been now? 7 years ago, the Khalil Mack trade, the Packers were right there, and the Raiders took the Bears offer over the Packers offer. Goody's not afraid. I know we all laugh when we hear about how Goody's in on every conversation, and then they don't wind up with the player. If Micah Parsons is going to get traded, I would be surprised if the Packers aren't at least in the conversation for real, though. Not just in the conversation, ha, 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 always the bridesmaid, never the bride type thing. But if it's real, I think Goody will definitely make a competitive offer if he hasn't already.
So you're telling me there's a 20% chance of a 1% chance. My back of the napkin math tells me that's a 0.2% chance that Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. That feels right about right. I think that's probably right about the number, a 0.2% chance that Micah Parsons ends up in Green Bay. All right, last but not least, your number 3 quarterback battle, Marcus. Pick your poison. You want Taylor Algersma, Sean Clifford, and I'll let you choose other if you would like other as well.
I mean, I would love to choose Vince Young if we could go back 12 years, because that would be just riveting. But right now, I mean, obviously you don't want either of them playing for you in an actual game. But right now, I still have to give the nod to Clifford. I know Elgersma showed some things the other day. I thought overall I was kind of looking forward to seeing him throw downfield a little more this summer. We haven't necessarily seen that at all. He showed more of it the other night than he had in practice altogether, probably. It showed some good things, but I think his head's clearly swimming right now. Like his internal clock, it's just the game's moving so fast for him. He's a guy who played 12-man football in Canada on a bigger field, so in some ways it almost is like a different sport. You can just see Sean Clifford so much more comfortable. Again, you don't want either of them playing. I don't think you're confident in either Clifford or Elgersma leading the charge if something happened to both Love and Willis. But right now I think it's, I don't know, minus 400, fairly favorable in Sean Clifford's favor, I would say.
Just looking at how they both run the offenses, it certainly would go in Clifford's favor. I'm more maybe subscribed to the Indianapolis Colts view of if you get to that point, you're probably screwed anyway. So just give me the player with a little bit more upside. And that way I might go with Elgersma just because of that. But I could easily see them just this is one of those classic conversations of if it's a Goody decision, he probably wants Elgersma. If it's a LaFleur decision, he probably wants Sean Clifford. And then you just see who ultimately wins that battle at the end of the day. Either way, that should be probably just a practice squad decision, not an active 53 decision. Marcus, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and joining us for a few minutes here. Where can we find all of your incredible work? What do you got cooking today on Better Call Eversoll?
Obviously, recap that preseason opener, talk about that Brewer preseason opener, second preseason game, and look back at that Brewers 14-game winning streak and all the memorable moments of that. I mean, it was just awesome. And, yeah, a lot of stuff to recap and preview here on a Monday.
Well, I will be there to talk to you on your show as well. Looking forward to that. We will all follow you over on social media at Marcus Eversoll. Marcus, I cannot thank you enough, and we'll talk to you again really soon.
All right. Sounds good, Andy. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well. Thank you to Marcus again for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. This has been, or I should say, this is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We still got a full segment left, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. Huge thank you to Marcus Eversoll for joining us this past segment. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show today, it is going to be with Mason and the one and only Tommy Wartz coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. Also, an important PSA for our listeners, the Pack a Day Radio Show is also a podcast. You can find us anytime, anywhere on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. And of course, check out the Pack a Day podcast when you are out there as well. All right, Tommy, not only are you, of course, taking the reins today with the Mason Crosby Show, do you have double duty today on the leadoff show? How is that working today?
Yep, two leadoff shows today for 2 games. We got
life is good.
Yeah, noon leadoff show today for the first game in Chicago, which it's going to be Freddie Peralta on the bump. We are still waiting to hear what's happening tonight. I believe so, at least. A lot of speculation on who will be the 27th man coming up for the doubleheader. All signs pointing to probably Chad Patrick comes back tonight, Andy, and pitches for Milwaukee. And then the next leadoff show will be at 6 o'clock today. So, yeah, double leadoff show when there's doubleheaders in Chicago.
I'm loving every second of this. And yeah, no way to, kind of rebound after losing your streak than by starting a new one today, getting that 2-game win streak, hopefully against Chicago. Big series against Chicago. Just don't want to give them any hope at this point in time. Doesn't need to be epic. Doesn't need to be crazy. Doesn't need to be 5-0. But if you can go win this series 3-2, I would gladly take that. Sign me up for that right now. And hopefully just kind of try to put this division to rest.
Yeah, honestly, Andy, it's a series that I've learned to stop looking ahead with the Brewers. Just take every day at a time. Just win today. And you can't even look ahead today, right? You got to play one game and then another game immediately after, or at least 6 hours later from when the first pitch goes from the first one. I really just take a day at a time with the Brewers because you'll enjoy it so much more, too.
You've been Murphed, Murph is he's in your head. You're like even basically Murph talking points at this point. You've been so ingrained in the leadoff show and talking Brewers baseball every day that you've now basically become manager speak at this point. Just one game at a time. We're not looking ahead. Just one game at a time.
Do you know what that 14-game winning streak means, Andy?
What does that mean?
It means nothing. Means nothing now.
Okay.
It means nothing, Andy. You got to go out, do it every day again. You got to win every day. We're not worried about the next game. We're worried about the next pitch, Andy. The next pitch.
You're set to coach Little League coming up here in the near future. Okay. So there you go.
Let me know if the kids need a coach. Yeah, I got it.
All right, I will definitely do so. How are you with soccer? Can you? What type of lineup you running in a 9-on-9 soccer league?
A 4-4-1, of course.
You're not playing a goalie?
Yeah. It's a new strategy.
It's a very bold strategy, and I like it very much so. All right, let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
All right, let's run through some players that helped and hurt themselves in this last preseason game against Indianapolis. Obviously, the Marshawn Lloyd injury definitely does not help him, but obviously helps some of the other running backs like Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks, like we talked about earlier. Julian Hicks, as Tommy mentioned earlier, big-time performance from him with some very impressive contested catches. Gets his name on the radar. He should have a practice squad spot at minimum, but even trying to make maybe a push for that 53 spot as well. Cornelius Johnson, same thing. Really big catch on fourth down. I thought he had a couple impressive catches. Has the speed, has the size. I could easily see him being a I wouldn't say maybe a lock to make the practice squad at this point, but definitely trending in that direction. I'd say Anthony Belton hurt himself a little bit just as being maybe like NFL ready. It's going to maybe take a little bit more time, but still saw some really impressive plays from him. Bo Melton continuing to do what he does at corner, which is a pretty remarkable thing. Pretty beautiful pass breakup. Continued to be aggressive as a tackler. He looks the part out there. We'll see if he can kind of continue that upward trajectory at defensive back. Donovan Jennings really struggled. I mean, he's been given a real opportunity to earn that number 9 offensive line spot, which is just totally up for grabs at this point. whether it's Kadeem Telford to Donovan Jennings, it's totally there. And Jennings has had a lot of opportunity, did not make the most of it this past week. Jordan Morgan, as we talked about, continued to help himself with the way that he's played these first 2 weeks. I will say Jacob Monk, after a pretty disastrous week 1 in preseason, not a great performance in week 2, but definitely a bounce back and much better than it was in week 1. At linebacker, Tyron Hopper and Jamon Johnson, I thought were two of the better players in this game in its entirety. Those two players, Hopper continues to potentially move up the depth chart, and then Jamon Johnson trying to probably make a practice squad spot for himself. He was pretty brutal, I thought, in week 1. He had a really nice week this past week, so good bounce back from him. Isaiah Simmons, as we discussed earlier, tough look for him for the second consecutive week. His roster spot seems much more in jeopardy at the moment, although as a special teamer still has a lot of potential. Although I will say, if he keeps his contain on the punt return, Barron Sorrell doesn't get hurt. He actually got around Isaiah Simmons on that play. Simmons probably should have had him pretty much dead to rights, and so even that has not exactly been picture perfect for him. Kamal Haddon, who I thought was the leader in the clubhouse for that number 4 corner spot, he had a tough day on defense, multiple penalties, multiple completions allowed. He's going to need a bounce back next week. Deslin Alexander helped himself with a big sack, and I thought an impressive performance. Practice squad candidate there. Both El Gersma and Clifford moments, but I thought El Gersma looked very hoppy in the pocket, did not look completely comfortable, whereas Clifford looked much more comfortable running the offense. Amar Johnson, I thought, had a nice performance again, getting his name in that conversation. John Fitzpatrick continues to shine as shine might be a little aggressive, but play well as the number 3 tight end. And then McCole Hardman, solid bounce back week for him. No mistakes as a punt returner, had that nice reception down the field as well. So those are some of the players that helped and hurt themselves throughout the course of preseason week 2. We've got Packers Seahawks joint practice coming up this week. That'll be a big opportunity for a lot of these players that are fighting for roster spots. And then, of course, the final preseason game on Saturday, Packers Seahawks as well. Tommy, any final thoughts from you today?
Honestly, Andy, I'm all in on Green Bay just bringing in Julian Hicks. That's what I want. I want to be the Julian Hicks guy. I think that what he can bring is very similar to a lot of the guys that you named, of just a 1 week type deal where Geronimo Allison somehow caught 7 balls, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns, right? Okay. I think that is what Julian Hicks can be. I don't necessarily see him as a number 1 option or a top 3 option, but just every once in a while you need a guy to mix some things up. And I think I know what we got with Malik Heath. I think I know what you have with McCole Hardman. I'm now in on Julian Hicks.
You are required to get a Julian Hicks jersey if and when he makes the 53-man roster out of camp. So
I will.
You'll be donning the Hicks jersey for the opening game of the regular season, and as we take one game at a time, moving forward as well. Tommy, I appreciate you a ton. You're killing it every single day. You've got a full day ahead of you with the Mason Crosby show coming up next. You and Mason going to be chatting from 9 to 11, and double leadoff show duty again from Tommy. So just stick around here for the Tommy Wirt show all day long on the Fan. I'm excited for that. Also, make sure to check us out over on the Pack a Day podcast. You can find us 365 days a year, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Back tomorrow with Sam Munson, 33rd team. Really looking forward to that conversation. He was out at Packers Colts practice last week. Excited to hear his observations on the team. We will be back tomorrow here on the Pack a Day radio show. We will be talking all things Green Bay Packers as we do 365 days a year. Until then, enjoy your Monday. And of course, go Pack Go.